What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to review the New King James single column verse by verse reference Bible from Thomas Nelson in the Premier Collection. I do plan on making another video with a bunch of comparisons, but in this one I'm just going to do a visual overview and basic facts about this edition. I've already reviewed the regular one, and so this is just the premium line with their new cover option. There are a couple differences though, and so I'll point those out. I took this Bible to church with me today. I do like to carry a lot of my review Bibles at least to church once if I can before I review them. That just gives me a little bit of experience in a real world context and user friendliness of the edition. And this one definitely stood up to the test. So here's the box. Not going to delve too much into that. It's their two-piece Premier Collection box. Classic. Here's the info on the back. So the major differences between this one and the regular edition are the black letter text, the 36 GSM paper, red accents, which they don't mention that here, and then 3 double satin ribbons. And the art gilding, I guess, is a difference as well. So let's look at the Bible. Here is the cover. The black goat skin is a very soft and plush feeling goat skin. Like, it says goat skin on here, but I touch this and I think lambskin. I do a lot of work with Napa lambskin for the liners on the Bibles that I rebind. And this is very reminiscent of that. It's a very soft, buttery kind of feel. A little bit of velvet in there. It's really nice. Have perimeter stitching around the edge. Machine stitched, I presume. Then on the spine we have 5 raised hubs with Holy Bible in the center, and then New King James Version and Thomas Nelson at the bottom. Very simple. Absolutely love that. I really prefer having a simple Bible layout on the exterior, because then it makes you focus on the internal content, which is really what we're after here. Have a probably calfskin leather liner, then perimeter gilt line around the edge. And just a little odd bit of information. From this corner, I can tell that they do the gilt line before they do the fold over, because you can see their fold over actually covered the gilt line a little bit. Fun fact. And then you have your ISBN stamped down here. There are 3 ribbons, 2 black in the Old Testament and then 1 red in the New Testament. Double satin, black head and tail bands, and then a red under gold art gilding. That's very consistent. The gold gilding is pretty solid. There's not much variance, it's pretty typical of Nelson. They do a good job. On the interior, we have a 9-point text, single column, verse by verse. Another difference between this one and the regular edition is that the verse numbers are red. And then you have red accents in the cross references, and obviously the chapter and page number. I really love their red accents. Some people like black letter, but this way I just think it gives a little bit of differentiation between all the content in here, and so you're able to find things much easier. And with a verse by verse, really the idea behind it is being able to locate verses easily. Obviously the original text was not verse by verse, and so this is just a construct to help us locate passages and identify passages. And so I think when you have red accents in that, it just amplifies that added feature anyway. Poetic setting looks really good. You can see the opacity here. Something that I'm going to do the comparison with the original edition in the comparison video. So here we're just looking at this plain and simple as is. You can see that there is a bit of show through, but I've noticed that the text on this is much darker than the regular edition. And so even with a 36 GSM paper, you have a darker text, so it still wants to pop up through the bottom. And so I think it's going to have a pretty equal opacity despite the fact that it is a thicker paper. But something I did notice with the thicker paper using it today was that you don't have as much page curl after use, where the thinner paper will obviously have a much higher tendency to want to curl up in the corners after it's received the oils in your hands. Words of Christ are in black. I just have to say, holding this Bible is really nice. It's got such a great feel, and it's floppy. Another thing I'll point out with the floppiness is that Nelson does not do an Oxford Hollow on their Bibles, and so they're just it's reinforced block, but it's just glued into the cover without anything attaching the block to the spine. And it helps it lay very flat because there's no extra support in there. An Oxford Hollow is really extra. But this way you have a pretty flat laying Bible right out of the box. There is a trade-off in terms of longevity, I think, but I've had a few of my Nelson Premiers for quite a while, and they have a little bit of creasing, but not too bad. I think they do a good enough job in their other features and areas of construction that it makes up for that. So you have Words of Christ in black, and then in the Concordance, the words that are being cited are in red. So you have red accents in the Concordance. And then at the end of that, you have note regarding the type, and then the semi-gloss, semi-cardstock Bible maps. So that looks pretty nice. I really enjoy this edition. I mean, honestly, if I had to choose one New King James Bible to use for the rest of my life, this would probably be it. I know I said that probably, I can't remember my exact words with the single column reference, which I will be comparing later on. But this one definitely fits all the boxes that I complained about with the single column reference, because that one had the references and text reversed. But you can see here it does have overcast stitching. This one on page 2 in Genesis 2. So that ties the first signature into the block. And as is the case with Bibles with overcast stitching, it usually lays more flat after the overcast stitching because you're past the rigidity there. But you can see, even in the early passages of Genesis, it is laying very flat, and this is actually staying down. So, fantastic job. So that's my review, and really first impressions, first week of impressions with the single column verse by verse. And I have to commend it very highly. It's not just because I received a copy to review, but because I think they did a stellar job with this edition, and definitely one to look into, and I would highly recommend. So thank you for watching, and I will definitely do that comparison video here soon, as well as several other videos that I have coming out with Bibles that I'm behind in reviewing. So thank you for watching.